All right, we are Revelation chapter 17. I think we certainly are blessed for going through the book of Revelation. As a matter of fact, that's what Revelation says, right? Those who read and study it, they're blessed for doing it. And I think we're learning a lot of things about what the future holds, about what's going to happen to this world, what's going to happen to us in our future. And there's a lot in there that can be said, and I think we've said a lot about what's going to come up during the tribulation period. Eventually, we're going to get to the millennial kingdom and the eternal heaven that is yet to come. Part of the things that is hard about studying the book of Revelation is there is a lot of imagery. There's a lot of things going on there. And a lot of people have made all kinds of statements about it that just simply aren't true. They take what's there and they either say, well, it's all allegory. In other words, it's just some kind of story. It's just some kind of thing. And it's not going to happen exactly the way that things say there in the Bible. And our problem with that, of course, is if you start to make an allegory out of the first book of the Bible and the last book of the Bible, which is what a lot of people want to do. They want to say Genesis doesn't happen exactly the way that it's written. It's, God just stirred things up and let evolution happen or whatever. And when you do those types of things, then anything else in the middle can be just a story, right? Can just be an allegory. And then we got to decide what's true and what's not true. God doesn't do that kind of thing. God has given us the book of Revelation. Things are going to happen. I have no doubts about it, exactly as it says there. Then the second problem that happens is people take some of the imagery and over the years have started, declaring what the imagery and what some of the things mean. And so they start saying that, these demons that came out that look like a horse that sting you, well, those aren't really a demon. That's a horse with this human face. It's really a helicopter. And so the human face that they're seeing is the guy inside the helicopter flying it around. And, when its tail is striking at you, it's really just, the guns going off and things like that. So they want to start trying to pretend they know exactly what it's talking about and declaring themselves some kind of authority on it. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to go that far with stuff. I heard a sermon and actually it was really a man had written some books and things like that and then had preached a sermon, and I had read the sermon where the gentleman declared way back in about 1968 that God would never allow man to walk on the moon. And then he gave all the reasons why it can't happen. And of course he was wrong, unless you believe that was all happened in a movie theater. I've seen books that have identified Hitler as the Antichrist, Mussolini, Harry Kissinger, and this is one I always liked when I was growing up in the 80s. Ronald Reagan was the Antichrist because his name is Ronald Wilson Reagan. His first name has 6 letters in it, his middle name has 6 letters in it, and his last name has 6 letters in it. So it's 666, the mark of the beast. He's the Antichrist. So people do those kinds of things, I think, to draw attention to themselves, and in many cases it's just for, what did we learn? Filthy lucre, right? They're in it for the money, and if they can say those kinds of things and sensationalize what's going on, then they can profit from it. And frankly, I don't think we need to sensationalize anything that's going on in the book of Revelation. It is mayhem that is going on in the book of the Revelation. If we would just teach exactly what it says, there is plenty going on. We don't need to take it any further than what it's already stating there. One of the most fascinating things then about going through the book of Revelation that we've discovered when we see the Antichrist and the false prophet and the false beast, or the Antichrist and the false prophet and the beast come all together, what do they end up doing? Making one world religion, right? Satan, Antichrist, and the false prophet. The unholy Trinity. And really, it's not the beast. I keep saying the beast. It was the dragon. They make one world religion. That's going to happen. And now people want to apply to it which religion it has to be. And we were talking about it I think last Sunday. Which one does it have to be? For years and years and years, it's been said it's the Roman Catholic Church, and it might be. I don't know. And there's a famous book out there called A Woman Rides the Beast. It's from this passage of Scripture that we're talking about. And they declared it to be the Roman Catholic Church. Maybe. There's a lot of reasons to go behind it. But guess what? It hasn't happened yet. And we might have it all wrong, right? It might be something completely different than what we're thinking. So we just want to apply what the Bible says and let God work out those final details. And when the tribulation is going on and we're in heaven and this one world religion comes together, you know what we're going to do? We're going to look down and go, oh, I see. Yeah, okay, God worked it out exactly as it said. But, it didn't happen to be the Roman Catholic Church. It happened to be Islam or whatever. Who knows? Muslims. Whatever might happen, God can do what he wants to do. If you'll recall, we studied really kind of verse number 5 last week. And it's talking about that one world religion. Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And we dug into great detail about Babylon the Great. What does it mean? It goes all the way back to the Tower of Babel, where man on this earth were making one world religion at that point in time. They all had one language, and they all came together. Not everybody, but a lot of them came together to start building this tower up to the heavens. Very well could be like a ziggurat or a pyramid like we see in Egypt, right? It's going up, and what's the easiest way to build up? Make a great big huge foundation and keep getting smaller as you go up. Even some of our great towers today have the same type of construction. The Eiffel Tower, wide at the bottom, pointy at the top. Even the Sears Tower, we looked at the Sears Tower the other day. It's a lot wider at the bottom than it is up at the top. The last few floors aren't nearly as big as the bottom floors. So it very well could have been something along those lines. And they were trying to get higher and higher into the heavens. They wanted to see God. They thought they could be closer to God by doing that type of thing. And God looked down and said, I don't want this. This isn't good. And he confounded their languages and spread them across the face of the earth. What a crazy day that must have been. Can you imagine waking up one morning and you go out to start building on your tower again? And you come up to Jack, who you've known your whole life. And you say, hey, Jack. And he says back, Selamat pagi. You're like, what? I just spoke Indonesian. That was good morning in Indonesian. And you're like, what are you talking? Why are you talking all this gibberish? And he's blah, blah, blah back at you. So they all had to scatter across the earth. Well, guess what? It's all going to be brought back together again during the tribulation time. And they're going to have their one world religion again. And when Christ comes, he is going to destroy not only this earth and all of the people that will have nothing to do with him, all of the unbelievers are going to be destroyed, but he's also going to destroy that one world religion. So verse number 1. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials. This connects the judgment with the last of the 7 plagues being poured out. Remember, we went through the seal judgments, followed by the trumpet judgments, followed by the bowl judgments. And the bowl judgments were just all poured out, and what a mess it caused upon the whole earth. We've been over it a bunch of times. I mean, the death, the mayhem, all of the waters on this earth basically are just turned to some kind of congealed mess of blood. No one has any water to drink. He's dried up the river Euphrates. And remember, Satan has used some kind of lie, some kind of deceit to get all of the kings from the east to go across that area there. As it's dried up now, they can get through there. They don't have to cross that river. And they all come together where they're going to be the battle of Armageddon. So all those vile judgments, all those horrible things are happening. They're occurring. And one of those angels that had one of those vials or one of those bowls that poured out came and talked with me, saying, come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. So this is a harlot, a prostitute, if you will. And it says that she is going to sit on many waters. Now, sitting is the mark of distinction. You know what kings in the olden days did? They sat on their throne, right? That's the position that you usually see a king in when he's displaying his power, his authority, his sovereignty over everybody. Sit up on some kind of high platform in a big chair and sit up there with probably some kind of spear or something with his guards around him, and heaven knows what he would do when he was holding court. Maybe the jester was down there trying to give him some kind of entertainment. But that's what he's doing. This prostitute is sitting, so she has some authority. The other thing to notice then is it says she sits on waters. Well, people are drawn to water, aren't they? And all through the course of time, you have great cities that are built upon water ports, port cities, or built upon rivers that you can utilize the water from. We didn't build a lot of cities in the middle of the desert. There have been some, right? But usually they got to do something crazy like dam up the river, like Lake Mead, that's practically down to nothing now. They're wondering how in the world they're going to get all that water to Los Angeles, California, to keep everybody from going without water. But that's what people do. That's what we've done over the course of time. Great cities on the water. And so when it says that she's sitting upon the waters, in ancient times, the water supply was everything. Babylon is a great seat of authority. It was a great place of sovereignty. And this great harlot is sitting and commanding all kinds of people, multitudes, nations, and tongues. And that's what it's describing there with her sitting upon the great waters. And even if you go back even today and look at all these old structures, you would see all the aqueducts and things like that. People needed water. They diverted water. They did all kinds of stuff with water. So when it says she sits upon the waters, it's talking about her authority, and it's talking about this one world religion where she is, this prostitute is sitting, commanding authority over it. And it says in verse number 2, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. This harlot, this religion, is associated with the kings of the earth now. Generally, the kingdoms are underneath the religions that are underneath the kingdoms are usually the religion of that king, right? The king takes on some kind of religion, and usually the rest of the nation is either forced to follow that religion. And we've seen that even in England. Way back when, if you weren't part of the Church of England, then you couldn't worship, you couldn't go to church, you couldn't go to any other church, and that's happened over the course of time, and that's what it's talking about here. All of these kingdoms are following this prostitute, but then so are all the kings, because everybody is that way. So she is engaged in committing acts of fornication with the kings of the earth. All the kings, the presidents, the dictators, whatever they are, they come to Mother Babylon, and their intercourse then is described as fornication, not adultery. Which is interesting, right? What's the difference? In one you're married, and the other you're not, right? So these are not believers. Anytime God talks about Israel, or God talks about his people, when they are starting to build idols and follow idols, he calls that adultery, right? Because they're his, and they're adulterating themselves. Not in this case, this is fornication, because they're all unbelievers, and they're just involving themselves with a different religion. They're involving themselves with whatever that world religion is. So it's not adultery, it's fornication. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Those who dwell on the earth, that refers to unbelievers, not the believers at the time. The unbelievers are drunk with the wine. Now, it's not real wine. She's not taking wine to everybody, so there's nothing inherently wrong with wine at this point in time. He's not talking about real wine, talking about becoming a part of the false religion. And they get drunk on the intoxication with the passion for this religion. And you've seen people who have been drunk or intoxicated with religion before. I'm certain of it. You've seen people that, they come forward and someone smacks them on the head and they fall down and they're healed. That's being drunk with the intoxication of their religion. Or, they're rolling down the aisles and you got these other people that handle snakes. Have you ever seen those churches? You go down to Kentucky and places like that and get involved with those churches. They take poisonous snakes and they play with them in front of everybody. And if they get bit by them, supposedly God would protect them from that bite. But it's crazy. There's all kinds of things going on out there. Well, that's being intoxicated with your religion. You are all in and nothing's holding you back from it. And some of those people go crazy. They become zealots. Guess what Paul was when he was Saul and he was running around this earth before he became Paul? He was intoxicated with the religion of Judaism. He was all in. He was killing the believers. He was killing the Christians. That's intoxication with your religion. And we were even watching here a little thing about a lady that when she was like 16 years old, 17 years old, she was forced to marry the prophet for the Mormons religion back in the early 2000s, and he was 70 some odd years old, and she was one of 16 wives that he had. And then when he died, then his son took over all these wives, and it's craziness, but it's intoxication with your religion. You are all in. There's no holding back. And he made her a scribe, so she had to follow him around and write down everything he did all day, every day. Which then, of course, he started committing all these crimes. That guy's in jail right now. He's committed all these crimes, and she's writing it all down and documenting it. So when they found her diary, it was pretty easy to know what he did, when, and how. But that's the way that goes. Verse number 3. So he carried me away in the Spirit. So here we have John again. He's being carried away in the Spirit. John gets to do this quite often, but this was pretty cool. Now, and if you remember John at this point in time, remember way back when we started Revelation? John is on the island of Patmos, and he has been crushing rocks probably. He's 90 years old. He's a prisoner. He's forced into labor, and he gets to sit on this rock, which is it's a great big huge rock out in the ocean, and he gets to have this vision. Well, he's still having this vision, and he's sitting on this rock, and he gets transported again somewhere else. Now, his body doesn't physically go. He's still sitting there, but this is like an amazing dream that he's having. He is transported in the Spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So he sees a woman. Well, what's the woman we've been talking about? Well, this is the harlot Babylon. And she is sitting on a scarlet beast, a red beast. So Satan, earlier on when we were reading what in chapter 14, is that chapter 14? No. That's verse number chapter 12, there was the red dragon, remember? And the dragon was Satan. But then in chapter 13, you see him see the beast. And who is the beast? The beast is Antichrist. So now we have this harlot Babylon, this one world religion. She's sitting on a scarlet red beast, which is Antichrist. Now, what is going on here? Well, one, if the beast is under her, then he's supporting her, right? If you've ever ridden a horse, that horse supports you. It holds you up. But she is the rider, so she's controlling it. You ever seen the movie Ratatouille? Got a little rat underneath the cap of a baker, and that little rat's controlling him because the rat's a great cook, and he wants to, It's Ratatouille, right? Isn't that the name of the movie? Yeah.
Is rat good?
No, that's different. Oh. That's something different. That's Ratatouille's a little rat underneath the cap of this baker and controlling that. Well, it's the same type of thing, right? The woman is on top of the beast, and she's controlling it. Even though the beast is supporting her, she's controlling it. She's got a hold of the reins. It's a symbol of the religious system capturing the whole world, pulling the world together. The beast is supporting the religious system, but the religious system is controlling the influence. And so they coexist for a while. We know that. Now the color of the beast is scarlet. It's the color of luxury, color of splendor, color of royalty. Isaiah would say that it's the color of sin. Some would say it's the color of blood. So this beast has all kinds of luxuries, has all kinds of wealth, but at the same time it's covered with sin and it's covered with blood. And then it says, full of names of blasphemy. Blasphemy is what you do when you call yourself a god, or you build yourself up to be a god. You are blasphemous. If you call something else God rather than the God of this world, you're being blasphemous. So what is this scarlet beast doing, or what is going on? It's full of blasphemous things. It's full of idols. It's full of anything except God. So she's full of blasphemy. And then it says, having 7 heads and 10 horns. That's an interesting beast, isn't it? 7 heads, 10 horns. Well, in verse number 9, we'll talk about it more in detail when we get there, but look at what it says. It says, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains. So what does the 7 heads represent? Represents 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. So 10 horns equals 10 kings. They have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast. And it shows us that his alliance is comprehensive. It's across the whole world. He's allied to all of the rulers of the world. That's what it means. We'll talk that into further detail when we get there. Verse number 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. So her apparel. What do prostitutes do? They don't put on their tattered clothes and cover themselves in mud and stringy hair and things like that, right? Because it's not appealing. They pretty themselves up as much as they can. They make themselves look glamorous. They make themselves look appealing, and that's exactly what this harlot is doing. She is appealing herself to the world and worldly things. And what is the world concerned with? Power, money, all of the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, all of those, great things, cars, houses, whatever it is. That is what she is doing. She is showing off her beauty. She is covered in purple and scarlet, which is for in those days and age, that was the kings and the princes would wear those types of things. It would show that you were extremely wealthy. It was very expensive to dye a garment a purple color. The things that they used to dye them that color cost a lot of money. The scarlet also has been used by the popes and the cardinals, and so maybe there is some little influence there into the Roman Catholic Church. Maybe, I don't know. But she also has a golden cup, and she's holding it. And what is she going to do with that? What is she trying to do? Well, before she makes love to the victim, she wants to get the victim drunk. She wants him to start losing control of his faculties. It looks beautiful. It looks nice. It looks good. It's seducing. And the world still does it today, by the way, right? Satan offers all these things to people. Everything looks grand. Everything looks great. It looks wonderful to go out there and drink and party and have a good time and involve yourselves with all the things that the world has to offer. But guess what happens is exactly what is displayed here, is in that golden cup that looks so good and so enduring, what happens? Her hand is full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. It looks great, and they start to drink it, and it's filth. It's nastiness. It's gross. It might taste good going down, but it's going to rot you from the inside out. And when we involve ourselves with sins and the different things that this world has to offer, it might look great. It might be okay in the moment, but there's next morning, and for the rest of your life, you got to pay the penalty for that. And that's exactly what is happening to these people. They drink it. They take in wickedness. They take in abomination. It's idolatry. It's abomination. And it's filthiness in the eyes of God. And instead of receiving the gold and all the riches and wealth of heaven, they're going to receive hell for eternity. We talk about verse number 5, right? Upon her forehead was the name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Verse number 6, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of saints. So this woman, this religion, is drunk. And like most harlots, she's drunk. That's what they do. But what is she drunk with? The blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. It's interesting that it splits them up into two categories, right? The blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs. A lot of argument about who he's talking about. It can be Old Testament saints and then the New Testament Christians. I tend to think it's all of the believers up until the tribulation period, and then the martyrs are those that have died during the tribulation period. But she's drunk on it. She is just murdering people left and right. She has nothing better to do than just to kill people, and especially the unbelievers. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. The world becomes drunk with the lust for her. She becomes drunk too with the blood of God's people. All the false religions through the centuries have hated the truth, and many of them have had occasion to slaughter saints. We've seen it over the course of time. Go to some countries across this world, and I dare you to walk in there and say you're a Christian, because they'll just kill you. They'll have nothing to do with you. There are some countries out there like that today. And he wondered with great admiration. That's not saying, when we admire something, usually we hold something up and we go, wow, that's pretty amazing, isn't it? That's beautiful. That's a pretty cool thing. Well, that's not what it's referencing. This, when it talks about admiration in the Greek, it's actually talking about shock, astonishment, and fright, fear. What other reaction can you have to all this? This lady and what she's doing to our world, what Satan has been doing through the course of time, and what's going to happen at the end there, all of the world religions coming together, and one of their sole purposes is going to just be to slaughter the Christians and get rid of them. That's what its main purpose is going to be. They're going to think that they're involved with right, and they're really involved with Satan. Let's have a word of prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we do just thank you for this lesson that you gave to us tonight. Lord, I pray that as we can take a look at these things that are going to happen in the future, that we can also take a look at what's going on today. How Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. How people look at these false religions and the different things that the world has to offer, and it looks so appealing and so wonderful and so great. And Hollywood has this great way of just making movies and making all these sins look so amazing that we want to experience them, and it's nothing more than a harlot holding a glass, a golden cup that is so enticing, and when we drink it in, it's just filth. And it chokes us. And literally chokes the life right out of us into following after Satan. Lord, I pray that we can see those deceptions, that we can see what the world really has to offer, that we can pull back the veil of the what is put on the outside and see the pit of death that's on the inside. And may it allow us to continue just to follow you and to follow what's pure and right and holy. Father, we ask these things in your name. Amen.